Why you feel like they should add some more context to like Two Blue Vortex and not just chapter to chapter?
Yeah, one of the biggest spots of manga adaptations to anime, I believe it was like 30 chapters and like 30 episodes. So I'm saying like hypothetically, if we're just saying 23 episodes that mean 23 chapters that we have right now. Chapter 23 should be coming out on the 20th. You could pretty much animate that in like 6 months, and I feel like like then we'd
Really?
have to go on like a whole other hiatus, like a few years long hiatus. I feel like it'd just be simple if we just have some well, I wouldn't call it filler, anime canon in there to like expound on some of the big stuff that the
Mm-hmm.
anime can't necessarily get to, from like the manga perspective. And to be honest, if we're actually going to go into like what is it called, the seasonal track, and then have like 6 months on season, then 6 months off season, I think that'd be cool as well. But I'd still also be a little bit concerned about how far or how much we could actually animate in those 6 months, and how much manga chapters would actually come out in those 6 months downtime. Like that's the only thing.
And then like my thing was too, like, I always complained about how short the car actuation arc was because they kind of went manga chapter from chapter with that as well. Like I think they added like slight anime canon episodes to it, but for the most part it was just, we was getting manga chapter after manga chapter, and it wasn't really anything in between it, any fluff in between it, just to give us more context of what's going on, getting other people's perspective and stuff like that. We just pretty much just got what the manga gave to us. So I mean, I would appreciate some more because we have a lot of questions that we want answered, and to not give us like any anime, canon that expounds the story further or plugs in those like little plot holes or whatever, that would be like super appreciated.
Yeah, for a fact.
I agree with you, free game. I think though arcs like the car actuation arc is some of the better material in the direction they should go towards. Like I feel like dropping anime original content is needed, but not to the extent of like missing out on arcs like the car actuation. Like basically like that
Mm-hmm.
deeper arc was great.
Yeah.
So by the time they got into the actual manga stuff with Kawaki, yeah, it was back to back with the episodes. But before we got to that, they gave us like a solid 20, 23 episodes where it was Victor and Deepa as the main villains. And I actually rocked with that arc, like as if it was coming straight out of the manga because it was a lot of information to build on. We saw how Amado was building an airship. We saw how the Kara members operate when they're inside of the hideout. So it was a lot of good things that they added in that arc.
That's true.
So it's
That's true.
yeah, yeah. So like I think that direction is something that they should focus on, right? And then as far as the tweet, it's just that because the animator he's basically saying like it's so serious the content we're getting right now in TBV, there
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be room for anime original content.
Mm.
And I think I don't think we should take it as like absolutely beat for beat. Every episode will be like chapter for chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say like there won't be episodes like that, but I think it's like kind of like a given. I can't say for sure because I'm not in the writer's room, but I think it's a given. Certain things will be shown that we haven't seen in the manga, and even for Two Blue Vortex. So I do have high faith that they're gonna completely abandon arcs like I don't know. I don't even know what to like. Arcs like the Konohamaru arc with Boruto and Konohamaru. They had the whole thing with the I don't know the memories and stuff like that. That can go. The Mirai arc can go. Unfortunately, people might not like to hear me say this. The Mitsuki arc that can set up on the 90-yard line and kick your way out of here. That can go to. So a lot of those arcs. But yeah, it's like a lot of those arcs, I ain't gonna say completely useless, but some of these things that they use to build the characters and give them development and personalities within those arcs, just take those elements and add it to the manga material instead of giving us completely separate storylines that have no effect on like the overall theme, or at least is not interesting enough to draw us in. So I think anime original content should stay for the most part if it's gonna mimic the car actuation arc. And hell, I'll even say like the first arc of Boruto, like the Sumire arc. So things like that.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and to be honest, some of those arcs had absolutely nothing to do with the manga. But like hypothetically, like for I wouldn't mind an arc like, and I know you just brought it as an example for why it's bad, but I think I understand why you probably put it there. the Mitsuki arc. The Mitsuki arc, in my personal opinion, had like a decent idea, or it introduced the idea of kata outsiders because the big person or the big scientist behind the whole entire thing was a kata outsider, and we later
Yep.
seen him in the actual kata actuation arc. But hypothetically, if that arc wasn't like 30 episodes long and it was like maybe 5 to 10 episodes
It
long, and
was
then we
not
actually got to
30
see the
minutes. It
climax
was
of
not
Zero.
30
Yeah.
episodes.
No, I
Stop
agree
it.
with
Bro,
Twilight.
Stop
I
it.
remember it vividly. It was 20 some
It was
episodes.
not that long. Stop
It
it.
was absurd.
They shave off a
It
good
was
8
like
episodes
10
of the Mitsuki arc.
episodes. Stop.
They
Stop
could not. That's
it.
cat,
Bro, I
man.
could go a
Whoa,
whole. Bro,
whoa.
I
Yeah.
promise
wish
you
it
it was
was
like
10
20 some
episodes.
episodes.
15 episodes max. It wasn't no 20 episodes, bro.
It was
4,
That was probably
27
the
8,
longest.
12,
episodes.
6.
I think it's the
That's a
longest anime only arc.
5 month. That's some 5 month arc.
Yeah.
Yes, bro. We
Yeah.
were dragging it throughout that arc because that arc even went into the new year. I believe it went into 2018.
I'm not believing it. I'm about to check this. I'm about to fact check.
So episode 72 is Mitsuki's will.
22
see
episodes.
this.
Okay. So from 71 to 92. That's
God, no way.
Bro,
I thought it was longer. I'm not
absurd.
gonna lie to you. I thought it was longer.
Same.
Wait,
I thought it was
71
longer
to
too.
92?
Episode 71 to episode 92.
Bro, that's
Dang,
still
that
down there
was
20
absurd.
episodes, bro.
Bro, the first, I believe, I won't even say first 15. The first 10 was legitimately a waste of time.
Oh, yeah, facts.
People find their stone, their heart of stone or whatever it was called, or something like that. I'm like, bruh, like Mitsuki just went rogue. Why are we paying attention to this? Like, I don't know, bro. They was building up the character of all the synthetic human beings, and they want to drive home the point that, hey, synthetic human beings also have a heart. They also have will as well, and of course, you can kind of connect that to the Shinju currently right now, stuff like that. How they have heart, they have a will as well, and we have to find out what they actually want. Regardless, I feel like they could have shortened this to like probably like 5 to 10 episodes and actually kept the Kata organization elements, and also plus with the messaging with the synthetic human beings.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
they could have done that, and I'd been fine with it.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say that when you bring that up though, that brings up a good point though. Like it was some type of foreshadowing though, like in that, so it was necessary. But I hear what you're saying. They could have cut it down a little bit. They ain't have to drag it on because 20 episodes is absurd.
Yeah, and to be honest, if hypothetically, if you're gonna include a 20, let's not say 20, an episode anime only arc,
Well,
you
hold
can't
on.
just have.
Hold on. How long are arcs typically?
Like 5 to 10 episodes, sometimes 15, the long ones.
Okay.
Yeah, like for example, a matter of fact, this is a bad example because a lot of people pretty much start watching the Boruto anime at this particular point. But one of the best anime original arcs was when Boruto when Boruto was figuring out the cycle of hatred. That was like the Funamushi arc at the very end, and that was a super long arc. And I feel like that arc was like way shorter than this. That arc was like 15 episodes, and that was like a whole war. That was like legitimately a whole entire war in the arc.
It was boring as fuck too.
I disagree.
Bruh,
But
the
yeah,
battle, the end battle, bro. I was expecting some.
What arc was boring? Which arc was
I
boring?
mean,
Funamushi arc.
not
But-
a hundred,
but
not
not
100% boring. I did enjoy some aspects of that arc, but when I say boring, I'm saying that like the end fight with the Misukage, his fight with the like the
Ojiro,
last
that's
guy.
what it was.
Yeah, the last fight, bro. That he just easy work of him, bro. Like slight work, bro, and it was over. Like, like the climax for the war that was supposed to happen. Maybe I had my expectations a little bit too high, but I thought it was gonna be like a full on war or some shit like that, and it didn't manifest to that. So maybe I just had my hopes up a little bit too high. Like with my qualms with the Boruto anime, like I do understand
That
the
arc is
meaning
cool.
behind it is because it started off in a time of peace and stuff like that. So they try to like more cater to children and stuff like that. So like maybe that's the reason. But even if you go back to like early Naruto, they was catering to children and stuff like that, and it was real dark, you know. But they didn't start off in a time of peace. They started off in a time of war. So it's different for these characters now. So I mean, I kind of understand like where the writers are going with it, and now we're transitioning to TBV, which is like the animator said it's going to be too serious, unlike part one.
Well, to tackle that first, I think for kids shows in 2016 is like significantly different than for kids shows in like 1995. Like for you can even watch
Oh, come on,
WWE and how
stop it.
WWE used to be doing all that crazy stuff back in the
Yeah,
WWF
yeah.
era, and now in WWE people say it's watered down. So like for kids
Facts,
shows are like
facts, facts.
viewed differently in time zones. But also I feel like that arc in itself, the Funato arc, I feel like that would be like a bad example of like an anime only arc because that doesn't necessarily give you too much of the manga stuff in it. That was more of like a specific Boruto character development arc. So I
Yeah.
kind of agree with that. That shouldn't necessarily be like a TBV arc. But I do think that, like, let's say even the deep arc, the Kata actuation arc, that has a place in TBV. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Oh yeah,
mind something like
facts,
that for like the
facts.
new character.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hundred
yeah.
percent.
No,
Yeah,
hundred
I
percent.
Cap not so clan arc is doo doo.
I
It,
disagree.
it, it had its points. It had
I
its
think that's one
points.
of the toughest arcs.
I see what they were trying to do, but they just
You're
didn't
crazy,
do it
bar.
well. They just didn't do it well. Like it was, and that's not. It's not. I never had an issue with the time of peace thing because I've seen Boruto do this where they tell great, compelling story arcs, and we're still within the time of peace. So I never chalked it up to it's because it's no, because even if it's peaceful times, there can still be dramatic stories told. It doesn't have to be world ending. It can still be seat throbbing dramatic stories being told. It's like what's going to happen next, and they've done that at times, and they open up the anime with a great example, like I said, the Sumire arc. Her about to destroy the village. It's like we know Naruto can likely shut this thing down if he wanted to, but everything was happened with a certain nuance to it that gave like that detective feel and also that ninja feel, but also it's like there's stakes regardless of the time of peace that they're living in, and they worked their way around it because there was a lot of arcs where both Boruto and Sarada had to realize, dang, we're so used to peaceful times, or had to realize, oh, we have to actually get serious. And those are the elements they can tackle, as opposed to just giving us a completely like it's obvious for me, bro, especially as a consumer who done seen so many anime. When it's obvious when you're giving me a throwaway villain, and it's even worse when I notice, okay, this villain won't last next episode, bro. Like, and Boruto has too many of those, and that's the thing that I believe that they don't want to see in TBV anime. And I believe even when they come back, however they do it, but finishing off this cold arc and going into the omnipotence arc is gonna be like a precursor, and they have an opportunity, and I truly believe they are understanding like the dilemma they are in terms of quality and the consumer content being interesting enough. So we don't want to see the useless things, essentially the things that we can go it out, and they want the work to look good. So I believe those are the two main things that they are focusing on and that they will work on. And also I believe that a lot of the animators have a lot of the concerns and complaints that we do. However, it just goes to like it's a job hierarchy. So I still got faith in them. And if we just stray away from arcs, like Funato Clan arc had good, like its highs moments, like a civil war within the hidden misfit, like that's something I would be interested in. But they so many moments folded, and you take so much time building up the wrong things to the point where when you actually get to the tension, it's like it's underwhelming, or it's something that just people don't care about really. So it's tough.
To an extent, I can agree, but overall, I have to disagree. And here's the reason why I have to disagree. Well, let me get to why I agree. I agree because the pacing of a lot of the Boruto anime only arcs, it was terrible. What they'll do is like they'll have like 5 episodes of build up, just hypothetically. I know the Funato arc was significantly longer than this, but like 5 episodes of build up and like 2 episodes of action. Like stuff like that cannot happen. Like you cannot have like the first
Exactly.
5 or 6 episodes of a 7 arc series be like absolutely boring, trash. Animation is terrible. In the last episode, you try to make it all up. That can't happen. So I kind of agree with them from that perspective. The Funato arc, I feel like, is a little bit different because
Consistency.
people gave up on it before it even started. People just didn't really care about it. I think that this right here is like a function of people who actually watched or read the manga. If you read the manga, you're gonna understand that the Funata clan arc or the Funata characters, they're not really gonna have a big impact on the actual big stuff, and no one's really gonna care. But like, I don't necessarily think like you should judge villains off of that. What's it called? Goku Black. I know this right. I know this is going to a completely different series, but he has no impact in the overall series of Dragon Ball Super. But people still look at him as like an amazing villain because his
Yeah.
first introduction People thought he's gonna actually. People thought he's gonna actually do something. People didn't necessarily have the moral arc in mind when they were actually watching that arc and when it was animated. It's like I feel
Right.
like things like that kind of hurt the Boruto anime in regards to like the hardcore fans because we already know the overall storyline. We already know this has nothing to do with the Karma. So this has nothing to do with the Kata organization, nothing to do with Otsuki clan. So people automatically before the arc even started, like I seen the reaction when the arc was even announced. Like people disliked it and they were saying they weren't going to watch it. So the arc, in my personal opinion, was already doomed from the description of the arc. The arc didn't even really come out before people was like, all right, I'm not watching. Even
Wait,
Free
what was
Free
your?
Game didn't even watch it when
I
it came
did
out.
watch it. What are you talking about?
I,
Nah, gang, you gave up on
Bro,
it
gang,
early.
I,
I no,
That
I
nigga early.
watched the full thing. The last
that's crazy.
episode was when bro sliced him up. I told you I watched the
It
final
was
battle. I
underwhelming.
watched the whole thing.
The final battle, bro. Nah,
No, 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 no.
Nah,
I watched it from beginning when Boruto and him were friends, and then bro found out that he was a part of the Funato art. Oh no, sorry, he ran away because he wanted to build ships with whoever took him in and shit like that. I watched the full thing, bro. I know the whole thing, and then he met his sister and blah blah blah. And like I watched the full thing, bro. I
I
watched
will say this.
Boruto. I watched Boruto try to sacrifice himself. I watched all of it, bro.
that's
I
probably
will.
you. But
I will say, as far like when you say that, basically people ain't giving the arcs a chance. I agree, but I also will say that it's like that's Boruto's like that's his whole niche. Like since it started, nobody never gave it a chance, but it's proven time and time again that it can prove people wrong. And for example, when it comes to like specifically anime original content, like because at the time when the anime was going, they would always announce the arc and give us a rollout of like images of characters and some descriptions and stuff. The Funato Clan arc did not get very well reception. However,
yeah.
the first few episodes, I will say, because me personally, I was never one to feed into the hype, whether it be the negative hype or the positive hype. The
Hmm.
first few episodes was actually and compelling to me, and I thought the
Yeah.
story started out in a very interesting way, and I wanted to see how it went. Unfortunately, the meat, like the in between pause, it wasn't there, and it wasn't hitting. The animation was good for the most part throughout the arc. I would say it was acceptable, and they had excellent like Boruto versus the sister. That the girl who was shooting the arrows. That was
Yeah,
probably
it's
my
fair
favorite
end.
episode. Yeah, it was my favorite episode in the whole arc. So they had episodes and times of ups that like showed you like they can actually do this and make it compelling and interesting enough. So regardless of even if people like say it's this, that, or the third before it drops, because there's always going to be disingenuous takes like that. Those are just like you know what I'm saying? You just have to chalk those up to the birds. But
Hmm.
with arcs like I say personally, one of my other favorite anime original arcs was Squid Game arc, one of the last arcs before the Code arc.
Yeah,
Um,
the with the
he,
last enter.
bruh, when that was announced, I
Hey,
was already on the like edge of like I'm tired, Boruto. Like y'all should already get the hint by now. Like do what we got to do. But the arc was good,
that arc was
and I
fire.
watched the
Hey,
arc. And I
bro.
watched it and I was actually intrigued. And the girl, the Kara in her, Olga, she's actually one of my favorite Kara in her. I know she's anime
Yeah,
only, but like actually like the whole idea of like having her brain be her superpower in
bro.
this
She
world of
was
ninjas.
OP.
And it was different, bro. She had a genjutsu within a genjutsu within a
Hmm.
genjutsu. It was
Bro,
like, yeah,
she
this
was
is different.
OP, bro.
And I'm like, arcs like that can take because at the time we're still going through the code stuff. I'm pretty sure we were going through at the time in the manga. Kara, we were approaching the omnipotence arc. All of this stuff was going down, but the Boruto anime was actually keeping me compelled week by week because I'm trying to see how is Boruto going to find his way out of this maze and back to Sasuke. And it had nothing to do with the overall story, but it was interesting enough. And they used little things to tie it in with like the Oga, the ninth Kara inner that
Hmm.
people didn't know about, how Amato worked and did surgery on her brain, how basically Jigen ultimately wanted her to die because she could, basically mess with his brain. It was just like interesting little things that
Right.
you can take from the story and just appreciate it for. So I think that's some arc like the Funato Clan arc. It's missing those type of elements to where you can point out these little things that are like very compelling. And even with the Deepa arc, Deepa was clowned beyond measures when he was announced. And then
Yeah.
everybody, I find very few to little Deepa haters after the arc has
Oh, ain't
finished.
no
Like
deeper
everybody
haters.
loves.
Come on
You
now. What?
you said what?
I don't know any Deeper haters, bro.
Yeah,
Deeper
yeah,
was one
that's what
of
I'm
the
saying. It's
coldest
like
characters.
non-existent almost. And when he first dropped, people were comparing him to Hisoka. People were comparing him to
Mm-hmm.
just basically mad flamboyant anime characters and just calling him a
Mm-hmm.
knockoff. And now Deepa earned his spot as one of the favorite Boruto anime villains. So I think they
Mm-hmm.
have what it takes, despite of like the raw reaction. They have what it takes. It's just a matter of do they follow through once they actually swing. And a lot of I ain't gonna say most, but a lot of times they miss on that follow through.